if they go in there with pots, with their particular comp setup, with all of the execute damage they have, that boss is coming down at 10% health. So you're going to have all the kill shots, you're going to have everything on top of it. He's just going to melt so quickly. And yeah, I'm really excited to see it because I think any pull could be a kill.
At this rate, they're going through this so fast. Yesterday we just saw guilds struggle in this one for hours and trying to find the assignments. And maybe it is that the fact that they have already seen guilds do it. But honestly, I think this is just a little bit of innovative work as well. Because I think the Prot Paladin, it's doing wonders right now. I really think that this is something that they prepared well for. Maybe after seeing just how hard the boss fight was, but the Prot Paladin pick it's great. It's really, really working.
I love it. It's a really cool to see these weird little strategies come out of nowhere. It does feel quite unique. It's awesome. But here we are in phase 2 now. You can see that the DK's pre-positioned to already get their grips in to make sure that those ads start going along the wall just to keep things as clean as possible. Got their first Ember Blast as well here, making sure they split that damage, move along. They'll be baiting into the wall, as you can see through their weak aura. Make sure you go against the wall because otherwise you're going to spawn fire everywhere, which is what they're really trying to contain even. And
more space you have to.
100%. And here's this first shield that they need to break through within 6 seconds, otherwise the boss one-shots them, but they've managed to do it in like just around 4.
Yeah. And the boss speed was really good as well. It was 51.5%, which is lower than they used to have. So like you can still see they're still getting familiar with the face. Like they're only not 9 pulls in. They're still learning, they're still min-maxing, and they're already getting in such good and consistent way of clearing it. I mean, look at the boss HP. It's soon going to be 48%. Yeah. This is again already 0.5% lower than they used to get it, and beautiful nuke phase coming in right here again.
So the shield is broken though. Oh, that was very close. 0.4 seconds left. Yeah, or 0.3 even. Oof. So super close. You even see the hunters, like it's quite a good fight for it anyway, but you can see they're running things like explosive shot even just to try and get burst window, because you of course can play it a few seconds later and let the explosion hit on the shield. Like all of those sorts of small choices and optimizations is definitely worth, but it looks like
it's also really the fun of World First Raising is making those small things, because over the couple of following weeks, that's going to become less and less important. You're just going to have gear, you're just going to start blasting through the boss, like you're going to start one-shielding that boss constantly. And that's really the fun of World First Raiding. You have to deal with all of these mechanic overlaps and generally more mechanics and do it with less item level, be more optimized. And I mean, it's showing the experience that this guild has.
No, 100%. You're entirely right. And you can see here that just Kalthas is just watch Kalthas's health. It is plopping up. There's not a whole lot of raid healing to do, so there's nothing else to do. You'll probably also see that any of the druids are probably popping Heart of the Wild and even healing at this point as well. Whilst there's nothing much to do.
Already gone.
Oh, I didn't
First focus gone, and it was gone. Marcus just looks at the timer, and he mouse over Kalthas for a little bit, and I think he just pops 2 World of Glories in there, and I think half the shield is gone. I think it's like maybe 500k absorb, and I mean, we have seen like Narcleus World of Glories critting for over 100k. So
yeah,
absolutely carrying.
It's slowly starting to get a bit more chaotic here. You're starting to see a lot more of the assassins come in. You can see that they've got their return to stone. That they really should be killed before that finishes casting. Otherwise, they top up to full health. But we are due to get another healing shield from the boss relatively soon. And watch the tanks here. The tanks need to be healthy before this because the healers aren't healing the tanks during this. And if there's a lot of ads up like there is now, the tanks are going to get annihilated. They really should be saving some cooldowns for this point just so they can personally survive whilst the healers do their thing, which is now.
Second shield not going down, and it's gone.
You also saw that they saved some of the little pots on the ground, which I can't remember the name of because I'm useless. You can see the pots on the ground were even used for that. Because it burst healing into the boss at that time, removing the shield.
Also the important part, these are the infusers, and the boss HP hasn't dropped yet. They're just dealing with these infusers beautifully, and Kalthas is up to 84%. Last pull, Kalthas went back to 75, and he's not dropping. He's going to go into the second phase in a bit. 90%, here we go.
Here we go. So this is going to be the second phase. They have already popped lust though, so that's something very important. They do have some time remaining. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how it is. And you can see how messy the room is. Even though how clean that first phase was, look how messy this entire space is. So hopefully they can get themselves organized, get themselves over to the corner. They need to be spreading the damage from this Ember Blast. Are they able to do it? Looks like they're just sacrificing. Not a bad idea. You can see all the execute damage coming in right now. All of those classes, they should actually be saving those spells probably from this point onwards, because after this dodge, they're going to be getting their first shield. Boss is dropping down to 8%, but they need to be able to break through it after this fiery strike. If the timers are the same, which they should be, if they can break through the shield, they should kill the boss.
Seconds remaining, 1.5, and they get the beautiful.
They managed it. This is very good news.
So here comes. And you can see sacrifice again, just again on the priest. Beautiful.
It's so lucky that it's on the healer. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. So
they
may very well.
Galva's dropping down to 10 seconds for the next one. I don't know how many CDs they have left remaining. I don't think they can kill him for the shield either. They're probably going to have to deal with this one. Next Ember Blast coming in, but
they have to break it. Let's see if they can do it. They've got 2 seconds, 1 second. Oh, they managed it. So if they manage to keep uptime on this damage, they just got to keep it under control, keep dodging the blazes. It doesn't really matter which direction they go in, just dodge them, and otherwise nuke the boss. They have to kill it at this point. I really don't think that they'll be able to break through a third shield. Are they going to be able to get it before the third shield?
DPS meter goes brr. They need to be able to keep nuking. Narcly's dropping super low, needs every single CD left in the book. Cloak of Flames coming in 0.5 seconds. Calvus has 500k HP. 44.
Oh, they did
400. The shield's there. Oh, wait, no. They did it.
They did it. Yeah, the boss dies at 1%. I completely forgot. Hooray! That's it.
There's the loot.
Oh, well done. That was very impressive. They managed to do the last phase. For the first time they got in it, they completed it. Well done, Echo. That is...
Even with a little bit of an early blood loss, we get a clean transition. We can do it. And that was close. 1 second left, and that third shield would have come up, and they would have wiped. They were starting to lose people left, right, and center. That was close.
That was so good. That was such a good progress. And nice and condensed as well. I think it took them around 11 to 12 pulls. Massive congratulations to the Echo guys in terms of getting that down. And it's now opened up the instance.
That was beautiful.
Mm.
This is Echo showing that they are competing, right? This is them showing like we researched this fight. We had our tactic coming in this. This was a hard fight. They brought Narclis in on the Prot Paladin, which I mean it's the Ashvane special. It's the Ashvane special, right? We saw a 3 tanking there and it went perfectly fine.
It was very just to give you a rough idea as to the final healing count for that. Although Narcles wasn't top overall healing, he managed to do overall 4.2k HPS as a tank. And all of that, like nearly all of that was going into the boss. That's so impressive. What a cool little idea that they managed to bring out, and it actually worked very, very well. And there's so much more coming up. Obviously, we now get to either go to Council. It'll be interesting if they decide to do that first. But by the looks of where they're running, it's hard to make out. But I'm pretty sure where they're running, they're probably going to be going to Dark Vein.
Most likely, yes. But yeah, it's exactly what we talked about. It's like the previous expansion's Disc Priest. That's Prot Paladin right now. He did half the healing of the healer, and he did 2.5k DPS, and the average DPS in this raid was about 5k. He was literally just half the DPS and half the healer. But the burst healing was so insanely high anyway that super good tactic right there. Just really utilizing a spec that we haven't seen so far in the World First Race to massive effect.
It's very impressive. Like it's always interesting seeing these little niche picks. I very much imagine that that's the last time we'll see Narcles now on Prot Paladin, unless they pick him out for something else. Who knows? Very much could do. But I always, like, when looking at this fight very early on, it always felt like this fight is very much vulnerable to these sort of weird picks. I wouldn't say it was cheese. They obviously didn't cheese the fight. They did the fight. I assume how it was intended, because that's how the other guilds have killed it as well. But there's just, each of the guilds are bringing in their own little unique ideas as to how many healers they want to bring, how they're going to be handling each of the shields. It's very, very cool to see. So yeah, big ups to these guys. They did an incredible job. They really, really did. And it does look like they are waddling down to Dark Vein. So yeah, it looks like we're going Dark Vein next. And It's going to be spicy. It really, really is. That fight is
Darkfin,
it's such a tight
Darkfin
DPS
has,
check.
Darkfin has turned from a mechanical boss on heroic. Excuse me. Take it away a little bit, Alex. I need to clear my throat.
Oh, that's okay. No bother. Yeah, so Dark Vein, largely speaking, mechanically, so to speak, hasn't changed all too much from Heroic. So you're still going to have the tank debuff, except now when the tanks get the debuff, they're going to have a little bit of Jade Fire Master style. I've got to face the correct direction to not die on top of that. For the bottles haven't changed at all. Just soak them. For the orbs, instead of there being 3 orbs to remove, there's now 4. And for the ads, instead of only getting 2 casters, you will instead of only getting 1 caster and 1 big boy, you'll be now getting 2 casters and 1 big boy. So yeah, it's a little bit more enhanced in that sort of respect. But the main difference is that you cannot. Well, you can, but it's detrimental to do so. You really shouldn't be draining any of the anima containers. So as the abilities come empowered, you get the tank empowerment to level 3, level 2 even. So it's like going to be doing raid damage and everything. Normally you would click that away to remove it. You're not going to be doing that anymore. Now you're going to be having the bottles. Next time they're going to be leaving goo on the ground and bouncing twice, and that's going to stay throughout the fight. The sins, they're going to be making beams amongst each other and rotating. And with one of those extra orbs, you're going to have even more of these spinning beams, which if anyone in the chat has done that fight, oh no, that's not a good thing to have to deal with. And of course, yeah, with the anima ads at the end, they're going to be rooted in place. You're going to be spewing out goo all over the place. You might not be in the correct location. It's going to be a nightmare, which we all get to watch. So big fun.
Echo does know this is the DPS check, and you guys can't see this. We can. Narclis is crafting his legendary right now. They know it's going to be a rough DPS check. This is going to be, we could potentially spend 3 hours here if the DPS check is too hard. So what does Echo do? They realize this. They know the boss after this is Slush Fist anyway, which is probably going to be a really hard DPS check regardless. Just craft the legendaries. At this point, you can see Narclis, he's going all the way on a single legendary, getting it as high as possible. And I mean, that's going to make him so much more DPS. And I wouldn't be surprised if more people do this either.
No, you're 100% right. Although the biggest power gain from making a legendary is the base effect, upgrading one from rank 1 to rank 3 is still a sizable damage increase. You might be looking anywhere within the range to maybe 50 to 100 DPS, depending on how much you really love those stats. So it's something that, if everyone does in your guild, it could make the difference. You even saw on that boss that we just did there. Sometimes they weren't making it because the boss was 0.1% off. They nearly didn't make it in time. So those really small increases that you can get on these players that know how to utilize those sort of increases that they get, it's make or break, especially when you're going into a fight with such a tight DPS check such as Dark Vein. So
for sure.
It's going to be
you can see this as well, because I'm looking at the frames right now and somebody got kicked and that person is Chief. Rest in peace, our beautiful American father. Limit also killed it. They were the first guild, obviously, to kill this boss. They 3-healed just because of how tight the DPS check was. But there's a difference in this. Limit went with Resto Druid and 2 Holy Paladins, whereas Echo right now is going to try it with possibly a Disc Priest, possibly a Holy Priest. I am not entirely sure. We'll see that soon enough. But also double Resto Shaman. So
yeah,
same plan.
In terms of what you think, like the difference of paladins and a paladin and druid versus shaman priest, which one do you think, like loosely speaking, would you prefer if you were going to progress this boss? What do you think in terms of like the strengths? Do you think that would be useful?
I think pure throughput wise, so like there's this really nice thing where right now in melee there's just no clutter, right? You don't have holy paladins running around in melee. You have extra people to soak, to go around and soak. I in general kind of prefer this. The only big issue with Resto Shamans is when they DPS, there is no healing. Whereas a Holy Paladin can often sneak in some Crusader strikes. They often use, or they at least used to. I'm not sure if that's the current gameplay anymore. But Resto Shamans are the definition of we heal, we don't DPS. So interesting to see how much DPS they can actually participate into this. But I do think Resto Shamans is arguably some of the strongest overall HPS class, and that could really benefit them in, having to 3 heal, because at the end of the day, you need to stay alive to kill the boss.
Very much so. And you can start to see that their comp is starting to fill out a little bit. And it doesn't look like they're changing all too much. It looks like, of course, Knuckles is going back to Ret. They're otherwise just bringing in classes that right now are slamming hard. So you're looking at the 4 DKs there just because DKs be busted and very, very good right now.
Yeah.
You got the double hunter. It wouldn't surprise me if maybe that last spot might even be another hunter. Hunters are, in a very good spot right now with marksman, and their CDs actually line up very well for a set of one of these ads. So you can get all of these ads within Wild Spirits. The ads just don't exist suddenly.
It's definitely going to be either a boomkin or a hunter. They can choose to bring in fragments on the hunter, or they can choose to bring, I think it is Klaus on the druid. Druid also, probably arguably one of the strongest pure single target specs in the game right now, especially with the correct crafted legendaries, which I know all of the druids already made their legendaries. So I definitely think it's a choice of like how they want to do it. I can see them, however, thinking ahead to Denethrius. And when I think Denethrius, I think 2 classes, DK and Hunter. So I think they might bring in Frag on the Hunter purely because I think Hunter just has a really good potential being good inside Denethrius, as well as Stone Legion generals, as well as Sludge Fist. So interesting to see.
It's a very fair point. And yeah, it will be very much so. Very interesting to see how they do it. It's good that they've already jumped to 3 healers, obviously done their research in advance. Because in theory, this fight, a lot of the incoming damage from Heroic, at least, was from draining the anima containers. Mm-hmm. So if we're not draining the anima containers anymore, that's a large part of the HPS kind of gone. And otherwise, you need to top people up for soaking and keep the tanks alive. Aside from that, there's not a whole lot going on. The orbs can be a little bit spiced, but that's about it. The actual amount of healing needed, historically at least, if you manage to remove the anima draining part of it, you should be able to do this fight pretty chill.
And this fight also has a lot of, I feel like a lot of single target healing. Like there's a lot of healing parts that you very much just want to spam heal this guy a little bit. This guy has the orb, this guy has the debuff, this guy's going to spawn the ads. These are the people that really need topping, and Holy Paladins are very well known to be the spot healers to a degree. Resto Shamans are mostly known, they have gotten a lot better at it, at least in this expansion, but they are mostly known to also do a lot of AoE healing. But I can definitely see, if you set up your Cloudburst effectively, you can really actually just take a very dangerous moment and just instantly drop it down to, hey, you're topped again. Cloudburst is pretty cool.
Yeah. I wonder if it will be holy or not. In terms of the priests, if we're going to be seeing a holy priest or a disc priest, because of course, if it is a DPS check, loosely speaking, disc of course does some healing, does some damage whilst they're healing. So
yeah, I also think because most of the healing is probably going to be very bursty, I think a disc priest can be really good, just because 1, the ramp, and 2, when you have to place the ads in melee, I think barrier is going to be very, very strong as well. I think this is definitely a fight where you might want to look at Spirit Shell, all the big atonement healing, the big bursts. I really think this could be a fight where you'd rather prevent the damage taken, especially when you heal very few, when you have very few healers. You'd rather avoid a lot of the damage than take it. Especially if you can avoid a lot of the damage, it leaves time for the 2 Resto Shamans to actually DPS. And I actually think, I'm pretty sure, confident in saying this, if there's nothing to heal and you just have DPS just DPS, or healers just DPSing, Resto Shaman does the most DPS out of all. Lava Burst hits for an absolute truck. I'm pretty sure these Resto Shamans can get the Lava Burst to crit for about 5,000 by now. So when you can DPS as a Resto Shaman, it's actually very strong.
Do you get Lava Burst procs as a Resto Shaman? Or is that only...
so in theory... Yeah, you can.
So in theory, you could just pop that up and just save up your proc and use it whenever you got a spare GCD as well. So you could even argue that some of their in-between weaves sort of too bad.
And especially even when the tank is alive, which generally stays alive a little bit longer than the other ads, you can flame shock to both the boss at one, and you can get double the amount of procs because you have 2 flame shocks sticking. And it used to be a tactic, right? Back in Battle of the Zal lore, on Jaina, you would run a 5th healer as a Battle Shaman, which was just a Resto Shaman, just purely DPS. It was maintaining it was like 70% of a DPS. It was a legit tactic, and all it would do is pop a send this healing tide of Spirit Link. and that was what it was. And you can kind of still recreate that, but first we need to get 20 men in the raid. It
Yeah.
honestly, it's,
So
it's even realistic that he might, the 20 guy might just be like an M plus on an arena and just finishing it off.
yeah, no, very much so. A lot of the players that are sat out, instead of just, maybe moping around or anything like that, they're constantly working on getting their characters in a stronger and stronger position so that if the guild needs them at any point, then they can. And here is the.
Here we see it. We found it. It's likely they're waiting for either Deep Shades or Jimmy or Cloud. Actually, all three of the main DPS
Ooh,
guys that I can imagine getting swapped in are here, and they're just trying to
yeah,
time their key.
I believe in them. This fight is
I believe.
spicy, by the way. I'm actually a big fan of that fight. But yeah, either way, it's gone now.
There's like
So,
there's the wish of every DPS on that fight, but that you do not get sent down.
hmm.
Exile the other DPS. Leave me alone. I just want to stand up and DPS the boss. But we have a nice little small break here.
Yeah, it's taking the time. I'm sure they're taking the time in order to maybe go over some of the footage that was limit generated yesterday, so they can see some of the things that they had problems with, and maybe even just knowing what the problems are is sometimes more useful than even the solution. So you can already start thinking yourself, oh, okay, like that particular overlap, they were really struggling. What sort of tools do we have available for when we encounter that sort of thing? 9 times out of 10, I think that most guilds would enjoy. Well, most raid leaders and people who are making strategies, they would find a long wipe more useful than a kill because you're able to see where they're struggling. So watching like a full progression is going to be quite useful. So even just taking this time to maybe just have a little bit of a look around, because it didn't take Limit too long for this. As far as I am aware, they got it within a reasonable amount of pulls, anywhere between 10 to 20. I'm not sure if anyone in chat maybe has a bit more of a.
It took him about 2-ish hours, between 1 and 2 hours, and that probably indicates about 10 to 20-ish pulls, yes. Also, we are aware that there's a little bit of problems with the sound. Production is working on it as hard as they can.
Yep.
We are all right now online. Sometimes small things simply go brr.
Yes, they do. So, okay. So if it's sorry, say again.
I'm still curious what they're gonna bring in. I think it's gonna be Frag. I think they're gonna take the Hunter, but I can also still see the Balance Druids in this situation.
I think Hunter's too strong to give up, but then again, I am biased because I am playing a Hunter. So I just think Hunters are really well suited for this fight, because you've got, like, if you need to burst AoE damage onto the ads, you've got things like you can run like things like volley if you want to make it so you have those windows in which you can burst, things like explosive shot as well, not to mention your wild spirits when you're running the particular legendary that makes it like proc twice on your aim shots and things. It's just nutty the amount of damage you can do. So it depends. If those ads are a problem and you want more burst, then you're bringing a Hunter, which it looks like they are doing. Looks like we'll be getting
frag. And like that's really like what Hunter is right now, and this is the reason why so many guilds are just prioritize him. It's not just because they're strong single target; they're super versatile. They have a really good AoE build that is still incredibly competitive on single target. They also have disgustingly strong burst, and burst is always something that is prioritized higher than sustained damage on progress. So, and outside of that, they have decent defensives. They have good mobility with disengage, and they also have an immunity, which has proven time and time again to be incredibly impactful. So right now, like if you look at like world first rating, what like the classes you want to take, Hunter is just like, the perfect class to bring like 3 to 4 of and just not feel bad about it at all.
Yeah, which is normally a bit rare. Normally hunters in the past, I think it's not only all the things you said, hunters have always been such a kind of jack of all trades, normally being able to fit into a lot of different damage types and things like that. But it seems like, because of their incredibly high damage, and they're kind of a little bit of like a new damage profile in a way, with having having such crazy burst. Hunters haven't been always known for the crazy burst AoE. They've normally had quite good like sustained AoE with things like Beast Cleave in the past, and if you pop cooldowns, of course, it can be quite bursty, but nowadays it's nuts, and quite a lot of the bosses just seem to fit quite well into those windows. Sludge Fist has the damage taken increase. Legions has all of the ads that are constantly swarming in, and in phase 1 of Denathrish you have all the ads that spawn at you. It's crazy.
30-second timer as well on Stone Legion, which is practically perfect almost for like volley lineups and just in general lining up your CDs, explosive shots. It's just such a good and strong versatile spec, and I think it's really showing to be arguably one of the best specs entirely for this progress.
Mm. Yeah, it has certainly come out of the woodwork. So hopefully, by bringing a third hunter in at the start of their progression, it will give them nothing but a boon. And one thing you did mention about immunities, a lot of the classes here are actually quite tanky classes. If you look through them, so the hunters have got themselves pretty much covered with deterrences and things. Druids have got bark skin. You've got the AMSs from the DKs. Narcles can even sell some heals. Warlocks are generally quite tanky. All of these classes that they've picked have got their own ways of surviving, which could be very useful for when either you've got an ad debuff on you or you need to go and soak. Because at those 2 points, that's, especially when you're running through healers, it's a little bit spicy.
Yeah, and I mean, like the anti-magic zones as well, from DKs, which has been returned to them in this expansion. They're using it so much every single time in the Sun King. At time on at least two of the on the intermission, 2 times, those zones were dropped just to help soak things, and it's pretty incredibly powerful city in general. You can even see it right now. They're taking, natural mending as a talent, just add a little bit of that F5 ability right there.
Yeah, and you could see there that there was running the explosive shot, the volley. They're either forgotten to change from trash, or they're thinking the AoE burst damage is going to be very useful.
I do think on this fight, like if you can control the ads, especially if you can get the ads fast to execute, where Revis can kind of start, popping off. I do think it's, you want to control these ads. I do at the end of the day, it's a tight DPS check single target, but it's also you want to control it. You want to be safe, so not surprising. But here goes the first pool.
Exciting times. Let's see how they do. So immediately on the pool, you'll be seeing the boss channeling into that Farlon, and you'll be noticing as well that nobody is going to be getting involved in clicking any of these if they use the strat that I think they're going to use. Of course, it's their first pool, so who knows what's going to happen. Interestingly enough, they're not actually being filled at the same rate. As you can see at the top of the screen, they've got that particular timer that shows the energy gains. We'll talk about it a little bit later. For now, let's have a look at the actual mechanics themselves. So you got the orbs there. You can notice that there's now 4 orbs. So you've got to cut up 4. That person, managing to go far away enough to actually get the 4-4. Bit of fiddling. Oh, it's taking them a while. So there we go.
Hear disappointment already. Ooh. You can see the disappointment in Roger's face. It's like, oh my god, we're gonna have to draw out the circles again. Here we go again. Get the paint. Yeah.
That's sad.
There's always going to be that one guy that's gonna be slow with it.
Yeah, that was a bit of a wussy boss. That was. It simply came down to they didn't remove the orbs quickly enough. Someone must have gotten a little bit confused. They've been raiding pretty much non-stop since this morning. They've had a couple breaks here and there, so people's brains could be a little bit fried. They just got to reset, refresh, and get back into the boss. I'm sure they'll be fine.
You can tell, Roger did something important when he starts putting his hand like this. But yeah, look at his hand language. It's amazing of Roger. Roger's hand language is like, now he's explaining it like very in depth. It's like, make sure you spread out more, boys. Like it's going outwards. You can see it with his hands. Next part is the open paint and you start drawing, by the way. That's the next tactic.
I like it. These hand gestures are amazing.
Yeah, that's Roger for you. Roger is such an emotional player. It's actually super fun to play with.
I can imagine. Well, it looks like they're getting a ready check back up after Roger has probably just spent the last minute being telling people to learn how to draw triangles. I'm sure they've got it. But yeah, I think like the trick for it, at least it was on beta, and from what I could see how Limit killed it as well, it seemed to be quite important. The person that's cutting up the, 2 of the orbs out of the 4 of them will be very close together. That one is kind of seen as like a corner, so one person needs to stand between those 2 to make it so they're cutting both of them at once. So it's like one person responsibly, while the other 2 people can just do it how they did in Heroic, where you just kind of stand near the orb and hope for the best.
You need one smart guy in each party. That's the TLDR. You need one smart guy in each group of 3 people selected.
Well, let's see. This is round 2. Let's see exactly how this plays out.
But you can see the boss. Like I think on that one pool, which was like they wiped at the first set of orbs, the boss was like 75%. I think I could be wrong on this,
Mm.
but the DPS, it's high. They're completely annihilating the boss.
Yeah, last on pool, all CDs. You can just see that the boss is not even being moved. A big thing in Shadowlands is there's so many ground effects now, so you really want to keep the boss still during people's cooldowns. But here's the first set of orbs. Can they do it?
I believe. See the paladin.
Yay!
We done it! Yay! The first puzzle has been completed. I saw some pretty wings run to the top right. I'm pretty sure that was Snorkelys. Snorkelys known as the smartest member in Echo by far. Highest I can get.
Here comes the first set of ads. So you'll notice that they'll have 3 debuffs. So you'll have 1 big ad and 2 little ads now that you have to be dealing with.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised to see like AMZs dropped on almost every single one of these. Maybe not necessarily on the first, but especially over time, it is a magic nuke that 4 DKs. They're probably gonna start assigning each and every single one of those and expect like introp rotation set up for these beautifully already.
And you can see that already. Yep, and the boss is now channeling into the bottled anima. So you'll now start to expect to see relatively soon, once that second bar at the top of your screen there, once that second one down gets to the first mark, you'll have to be, once you soak the orbs, there'll be goo on the ground. So the room's going to start getting a lot messier. Those orbs were done expertly. It seems like people are getting back into the flow of it now. Like, it's the same thing. It happens for every guild. Like, I know we're kind of joking, saying, "Oh, congratulations on doing it." Like, of course, like it's easy enough to do. You just need to get back into the flow of it. And sometimes that can take a pull or two just to get your mind in the right space. But they're doing it well. They seem to be in the zone. The fight seems to be going cleanly. Nothing too much to worry about yet. But that's just how this fight is. There isn't anything to worry about until there's like 12 things to worry about.
There you have it already. And, slowly assign those AMZs, those anti-magic zones, just to reduce the AoE damage taken. Your 3 healing, you might as well reduce as much damage intake as possible. And we do also see what we were talking about earlier. Ryzen did go holy. They're just, nice and smooth. Make sure, maybe they trust. If they need to, the extra 2% boss HP at the end, they can always do it then. And we do see Roger actually clicking the container.
Yeah, so he's clicking the one I think that was.
One went through.
Yeah, one went through.
That was one that was already in a puddle on the exact same spot, and you could barely see the outline.
You can see that boss 56%, not bad for a second. Well, really, the first proper pull. Getting through that, they did very well. Interesting that they're going to start mucking around with the
LVY.
What's it called? Oh yeah, LVY first and foremost. But it seems like they are actually clicking on some of the containers early on.
Yeah.
In order to make it so that they basically delay the rate in which some of the empowerments go off. So as an example, the ad empowerment, the fact that roots you is so unbelievably disruptive that it kind of makes sense of them trying to delay that somewhat. Because you really want to be able to move around with those ads. And if you're all stacked up ready for those ads, if 3 players all on top of each other get the debuff, they're just going to instantly kill each other. No amount of cooldowns really are going to save them. Maybe if you literally bunged everything on them or they have an immunity, they'll be all right. But that's about it. So making it so that root containment thing doesn't go off early is probably a good idea.
I'm getting it for my room is getting a little bit dark, and I'm going to have to turn on the lights in a little bit.
Okay, fair enough. It is starting to look a bit spook.
Slowly turning into a ghost house. Well, pools like, excuse me, like they are actually just like, again, it's just slowly progressing. This time they wipe to a stupid so going through. There's not, that's really easy to prevent. Start pre-assigning spots where kind of everyone is, you can make a nice little arc of the ranged. You have the 2 resto shamans as well, which is something that Limit did not have, so they had more people in the melee. So in theory, they can very quick, easily spread out correctly. And I mean, this was just like a soak that was already in an existing puddle. It was hard to see. It went through, and I mean, if a soak goes through, the rate's just a wipe, right? You can't have soaks.
You're
go
entirely
through.
right. Yeah, if any soaks go through, it's especially with 3 healers. Even if people don't die, they're going to fall behind. They have to use cooldowns to cover, which they really want to be saving for other more spookier points. So yeah, having attentive ranged is going to be important. And in terms of like super mobile ranged. You've got the 3 hunters that are quite good. They've got quite good mobility, and you've got, of course, the mage, which has that sort of mobility as well. But aside from that, you know, just people need to kind of just keep attentive and just kind of play out the mechanics as they're kind of put through. Because really, you could argue that the first part of this fight really isn't too much different from heroic in a way. It just kind of continues on for a while. It just really, at one point, the flip switches, and you now have like 3 empowerments or 4 empowerments all at once, or maybe even like it goes up to 8 possible empowerments all at once. So that's where the mythic really starts to kick in. So of course, dying to a potion not being soaked is just a simple mistake. It's not a big deal, I suppose.
And while all of this is happening, I can see in like the cheeky top left corner that the nodes are changing. So they're just like assigning stuff. Right now, they're just like probably assigning, it's like, hey, you guys are going to be on left side, right side, back left, right back. You're going to take this interrupt, you're going to take this interrupt. They're probably quickly sorting some interrupt weak aura, most likely, you know.
Yeah.
Generally, just like the small things that they're doing. You can see Roger, he's in a. This is literally the interrupt weak aura. Good guess, Kana. Good job.
You did it.
They're assigning their interrupts right now. They're assigning, you know, where they're gonna be soaking. You can keep pulling, you know, but you'd rather just take the extra 5-6 minutes, quickly assign everything, make sure everyone knows what they should be doing. You can't have a stupid wipe to either going through an interrupt going through, and just start pulling. And when you have the DPS, and you know, like you said, once you can play hard mode heroic, basically, the boss can start flopping.
I'm why wouldn't they have assigned these CDs before? At least interrupts even. I guess time. They just run out of time, or
I mean, you also kind of want to see like how fast it dies. Like we saw some of the ads just die so fast. You can, in theory, yeah, you can like almost assign this beforehand, but at the end of the day, it's something like, you know, you might almost want to do on the field.
That makes sense.
Going in like the first box loaded is also like you're probably gonna forget something, even though you have a raid leader outside that can really do it for you.
Yeah, in theory, that does. Of course, as you're looking here on screen now, you can see how Echo has been getting along, plowing through Shriekwing, Huntsman, Hungering Destroyer, and Artificer. Just very recently killed Sunking as well after a very short and very impressive progression on that, from my point of view.
Yeah.
Now working on Dark Vein. Oy, oy, oy. This, I'm a little bit worried this fight might just be excessively cruel in terms of how tight the DPS check is.
I would be very disappointed if they just cleanly kill it within like 2-3 pulls. I would be very disappointed. I want to see like, you know, at least 1% wipes. I want to see at least 2 of those. It would be so disappointing. We have seen limit for like a good like hour just wiping at like low percentages, wiping at 2%, wiping at 3%. I would be disappointed if they just like snack through it in this next pool. I want to see them struggle a little bit, you know, make the boys sweat, give some effort for that loot that they so much want.
No, I get that, especially because, you know, after these 2 bosses, well, after Dark Vein, we've of course got the other end of Wing boss, Council of Blood, and that it seemed like Limit made very short work of that in secret as well. It seemed like they were trying out some strategy stuff and kind of accidentally killed it, which is very interesting. So the it seems like, you know, after these 2 bosses, we're kind of working on the last 3, and I don't know. You don't want the raid to go by too quickly, although you do want the boys to do very well. So let's see how they get on in this particular pool for their 3rd pool going into Lady Enerva Dark Vein. Largely speaking, from a Mythic difficulty change, there isn't a whole lot different in the early stages of the fight. You still want to be dealing with a tank debuff, largely the same, which you can see here, actually. You can see that you have to face 2 of the Jadefire Master style abilities, which is cool. You can see the Sin Orbs there. They need to be broken. There are 4 of them now, but largely speaking, you still just make the triangle. You got the bottles that you need to soak. Just the same as usual. And eventually you'll see that we got ads. We got 1 big ad and 2 little ads as well. And aside from that, you just want to nuke the boss as soon as possible. So that's really the Mythic changes. Apart from not using any of the anima containers, so eventually everything will become empowered. So this fight gets very spicy very quickly.
Yeah, and you can start seeing, like, you know, they're slowly starting to assign those healing cities as well. We already saw the first anti-magic zone being dropped now, which obviously didn't happen in the previous pool. and every single one of these at drop off is just gonna have a anti-magic zone. It's like the by far easiest place to put these and to use them effectively. And we even see a Aang totem coming out. Might just be the fact that they think the fight goes longer than 5 minutes, so they might get it back up at the end again. But and next set of orbs comes out. Narcoles at the forefront, having to do the difficult job, and he does a good job, Narcoles. Woo!
Especially Paladin, bless. You see how far you had to run. It's so sad.
He didn't even have to mercy. The poor
I
boy
know.
just had to run all the way.
Just had to waddle his way over there. But here comes the next set of ads. I'm going to get these under the boss. This boss is dropping. It's already at 66%. And we haven't been in this fight for very long. We've been in here just shy of 2 minutes. This set of ads will be annihilated by the hunters. Just watch this. If you watch the DPS meters, hunters should all be putting down their wild spirits at this point. They should be all be using their true shots at this point. You can see Ginchi already starting to ramp up. These ads will just get melted, which is... Yep, there you go.
It's not like DKs are particularly bad at this. You know, they just have so many incredibly strong classes. Even the warlocks seem to be enjoying it to a degree. You know, free soul shots just to pop even more single target damage.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really good raid comp. So far, it's honestly the druids are the weakest, but I mean the druids just aren't doing much. They're probably playing full single targets, and they probably just aren't doing that much to the ads, but they are actually popping hard onto the boss.
Yeah, no, it'll be very interesting to see, actually. I'm going to have a quick look at logs to see if we have access to this boss just yet. But that'll be a very interesting thing to see exactly how they are developing on this particular fight. They've also got, if they happen to be Kyrian, of course, they could just be buffing the hunters and DK's damage as well, if they went that particular soulbind, which isn't an unreasonable one. Here come the beams. So as you can see here, you've got Kuri's going to be on the two corner ones. So really, Kuri needs to go backwards a little bit. There we go. Unfortunately, he died, but he was still in the correct position. So we were able to remove the orbs. It's a lot of incoming damage at that point, but of course you can't run through the middle of those beams, those orbs anymore because they're connected by beams. The next one's coming up, however, those beams are going to start to rotate. As you can tell, everything's starting to get a little bit more spicy now. So here are the beams. That is very ballsy staying where they are. That's cutting right through melee. Oh, Kuri just ran right through a beam. If he gets in that link, he might be all right. Fortunately, the beams weren't rotating just yet, actually, so my mistake there. I believe it will be as of the next set that they will start to rotate. And you can see now that there's so much goo on the ground as well from the potions. The potions are going to start to, the bottled anima they're going to start double bouncing now. So you're going to see after this soak, very likely they're going to double bounce. And I think something with the soak there. Yeah.
I think at that point they only had the double bounce. So I think around that time, the first container was very close to getting to the 66% mark, which is where the beams I think start rotating. But the second set, they just had it on the 64 as well. So they are clicking the containers. They are actually trying to manage the containers and actually keep a lot of the containers under the second set of empowerment, so they don't get the swirling orbs, so they don't get the bouncing casks. Which is interesting. I think it actually is kind of smart, but at the same time, I don't know how this is going to work out in the end, because you're going to have suddenly you're going to go from like 2 containers that might go over their second empowerment, and with this way you might get the third container to do it faster as well. But at the same time, you're going to have an easier time earlier on, which means you can get more boss DPS. So it's something that they're trying to see right now what exactly they want to do. But I mean, again, they just wiped to a soul going through, but the boss is like 35%. So the execute's going to start kicking in.
It's I think at that particular point, it's understandable that a potion would go unsoaked to one of the bottles, even they would go unsoaked. Largely because there was beams in melee, there were ads up. There's already goo all over the ground. It can be quite easy to miss, especially in a chaotic point. But now they know when they get to that point again. Remember those bottles. We can't be wiping to not soaking bottles. It's a relatively simple mechanic to try and keep under control. But it's understandable why they kind of made that mistake there. By no means does it mean that that they're throwing away these pools or anything. It's something that they need to learn over time. Is that even when everything is on fire around you, you still need to be able to do the things that the boss asks of you. Even the most simple one, which is just soaking one of those little void zones, it's super important. But it does look like they're about to get back into a pool. The pool timer has begun. And I'm very much interested to see like I think that we're not too far away from like a 20% wipe. No joke. I think we could just kind of waddle into it from nowhere.
We're also getting like I can check quickly through the logs, like what times of are these wipes that they're having right now. Actually, maybe you're also getting slowly close to that execute phase. Like these bosses, soon the 3 minutes, they're gonna come back up. The 2 minutes are gonna come back up. I think they might be reaching the 4 minute mark soon, and the bot is getting below that 35%, that 25% mark, and at that point, it's just gonna start melting. DKs have execute, hunters have execute, warriors have execute, warlocks have execute. Like the boss is gonna start dropping really, really fast.
I'm pretty sure. There we go. Yeah, I was going to say that I can't see which range player that was, but they need to take a couple more steps in order to break those. That's unfortunate that was, because of course that entire time, if you got melee out there dealing with the orbs, they're just sitting there doing no damage, and we can't really have that. But it's it's not too bad. That was a little bit spicy.
Up and others are gonna start popping off on here.
It seems like they've been built, like you can see the volleys coming down. I think they're running explosive shots as well. So they've kind of built their talents, their talent build around dealing with these ads quickly, and you can see how quickly the little ads still are killed. And by the looks of it, they largely want to cleave onto the Spectre. You don't really want to single target it down just because the DPS is so tight. It's way more efficient for boss damage purposes to focus the boss and splash onto the Spectre instead.
Those orbs were dealt with so freaking fast as well. They literally spawned and they disappeared again. One of the upsets of getting a mage orb with you, because he's gonna blink and he's at the other side, and if the other two are positioned correctly, they spawn and they're gone. It's a testament to how well they're trying to min-max it. Next set of ads coming in again. Hunters are gonna start rising onto here. DKs as well.
And believe you, it's the 2 minute set. This set is really gonna melt. Just watch the hunters
Curry actually using the PI for himself. He has the legendary that gives it the PI to someone else and to himself, but I'm not sure if he actually made his legendary just yet. But yeah, like those guys just get melted, and you see at the time this ad wave comes up, Gingy just skyrockets into the DPS.
And a very quick clear of those orbs, which is very, very good, keeping the fight under control. And the boss is getting pretty low at this point, but the anima containers are starting to get pretty high. So the potions are going to start leaving goo on the ground. It's not too long from here that we're going to start to see double potions as well. So each time you soak a set of these bottles, you will see another set spawn. Not sure if that's exactly at this point just yet, but it will be coming in very, very soon. But now the boss is focusing onto that third container. This is where the sins, the orbs on the ground, which you need to use geometry in order to remove. This is where they start getting beams amongst each other, and the beams start rotating. So I'm not sure if we'll see it exactly on this set yet. Oh, no, we do. So if you run through those beams, you need a lot of help in order to survive. So fortunately, you can see the guys generally sticking to the outside. I think that player might need to get a little bit closer.
He has to go a bit more to the left. Yep, there we go.
There we go. That was well handled eventually. It can be quite fiddly because of all the goo on the ground as well. But unfortunately, we have got a death. I think that's off one of our druid friends. But as long as the tank's drop, he is getting a red.
This that was one of the DKs.
Oh, was it? Excuse me.
Oh no, Revis is inside the orb.
Oh no, Revis.
Oh no, sir.
Yeah. He blinked out, so it's fine. We just need to get that. The player who's responsible for the doubles just needs to sort their stuff. There we go. So they're keeping it under control. You can just see how quickly this fight starts to spiral out of control. So when these empowered abilities start overlapping with one another, you've got to be really careful. So you've got another set of sins of these orbs in here. Pretty sure.
So this is like some of the harder.
It's going to cut through melee.
Oh, they cleared it just in time. Nerith is however down. Tank damage, like this is like one of the hardest waves, right? Like this is actually where you almost would just want Bloodlust, but you need Bloodlust to make the DPS check. That's just super hard. You have rotating orbs, you have tank ads being dropped in melee. If one of those slices through the tank almost guaranteed to die. That is really, really rough, but they rest them back up. Ryzen is dead though, so they are 2 healing right now. And you also have Frago on the DK dead as well. But I mean, they're still trying. The boss is like 25%, and the execute phase is gonna start kicking in. It is time for the hectic moment, though. You see all those little night phase forms. They're just bouncing around, trying to grab all of them. And the next set of
So
orbs coming as well.
So you've got orbs rotating, you've got double bouncing bottles, you've got tank debuff that they need to move out of when they explode, and you've got people who get the ad debuff right now. They will be rooted when they first get it. That's why everyone's dying. It is really, really tight at this point. It's just so much going on, and it's one of the fights that the more damage you do, the quicker you can kill the. Basically, you need to kill the boss before the empowerments become so overwhelming that eventually they end up reaching 100%, and you just flat out get one shot. So it looks like it's a high strategy, high mobility, soak this, do that, deal with all these mechanics, and it is partly it is that kind of fight where you do need to deal with a lot of mechanics, but really it's a hidden DPS check fight. It really is.
Yeah, you saw also at the end that people start to panic a little bit more, and people start to start double soaking cax, which means you start taking more damage altogether, and it just turns into this crazy thing. And at the end of the day, this is just kind of what progress is about. The faster, the more people get used to this fight, the faster you're gonna clear those orbs, the easier people are gonna communicate during these hectic times. This was the first wipe where they just died to Mythic, right? This is the first time no soaks went through it. They just wiped to the fight becoming hectic, and now it's just get into the habit, stay calm, get more used to clearing these orbs out. And honestly, once you start clearing the orbs out faster and faster because people are more used to it, you're gonna start having a lot. You have less overlaps. You don't need to worry in melee that the beam is gonna go through. Heads are gonna die faster. People are gonna have more space to soak the orbs, not have to use immunities for that. But I mean, all of those things will slowly get assigned, and people will just get more used to it.
And of course, for those who are unaware, for this fight on Mythic, if you click on and start to drain anima from one container, it will just start to fill up the others, meaning that the others are more likely to explode earlier or get empowerments earlier. So generally speaking, apart from maybe clicking on the fourth one, because you don't want players to be rooted earlier on when you get the ads picked up on you, that's the main reason that the guilds aren't clicking on any of the anima containers. But we're going live right now into one of the pools. I think at this point, this is either the fourth or fifth pool, one of the two. And they are making they're doing well on it.
Within really 25%, it might not have been close, and it's still a really hard DPS check. So the last 25% is arguably harder than the first 75%. But a guild like Echo that performs so well on Sun King that killed Artificer in 20 pulls as well, they can do it, right? The faster you get more used to the mechanics, the faster all orbs go, means people can go back to DPSing way faster, and slowly but surely you're gonna make this fight less hectic by just being better at the core mechanics.
100%. It's you very much said. It's even though these mechanics are getting empowered and they become more difficult to deal with, the way that you deal with them is still the same base idea. You want to connect those orbs up quickly. You need to still soak those things smoothly and with high health. You need to keep interrupting the ads and controlling and cleaving them down. It's still you're doing the same thing, even though the abilities are slightly harder. So just getting good at clearing out, especially the orbs. If you can clear out those orbs before they even really have the chance to do anything, you're in a much better spot. But you can see here that you just saw Roger click on one of the containers, and that is because if that fourth anima container, you can see it's the fourth one down on his UI element that's next to his minimap. If that reaches the 33% mark, the people who get the debuff are going to be rooted, and the debuff itself, when it explodes, does so much damage. You really don't want those players to be rooted, because if they happen to be all on top of each other, say it goes on a bunch of melee players, if you don't have big CDs, you are going to die. So it's not a bad idea to keep that container free from any particularly bad overlaps. But talking about overlaps, there's a lot to soak here whilst the ads spawn. Is it just me, or have we only got? Do we only have one other ad? Where's the other condemner?
Maybe somebody. It might be. Is maybe possible that you can pre-AMS it?
Maybe
it, in theory, is a magic application. Maybe you can pre-turtle it. Maybe you can pre-ice block it. It looks like that might be a case of pre-immuning. Which, if you can pre-AMS it, then that's obviously another reason why DKs would be incredibly good on this fight, as you start spawning less ads.
That is really, really insane. So looking at the energy thresholds on these containers right now, the first ability is empowered by 1. So that means that the raid is going to be taking slightly more damage. The second ability is only still empowered by 1. It's gone through one of those sections, which means that there'll be goo on the ground. Eventually, that will be doing double. So once you soak once, you need to soak it again because it bounces back up in the air. Now the beams, as you see here, the orbs even will have beams between them. So very important that you're not stuck in the middle of those, because getting out of there is a very difficult thing to do. I'm not sure who that is,
See,
but
one of
they
the
didn't care.
yeah, he just ran through with AMS. He was like, "Yo, low, I'm gonna go get it," and he's gonna need to get dressed back up. It is really, really difficult to even get to that point, because what choice do you realistically have? It's either you have to run through or you have to run all the way around. And I mean, DKs aren't the fastest class in the game. It's gonna take him, a good 10 seconds to get there with the ad spawning. You're a bit of a timer, so definitely not favorable for the DK right now. And I actually think he practically made the correct choice. Maybe a bit more personals and an external something could have lived, but obviously 3 healing makes it kind of hard. And we do see, I think, Ryzen going down as well.
And if he's one of the corner people, which I believe he is,
yeah, he does look like he is.
That's gonna be
look at him in that little puddle over there.
Can be very difficult in order to fix that. I think that very much will be a wipe now, especially with that that potion going unsoaked. Yeah, the orbs exploding because they can't get the players in the right position. It's a sad state of affairs, but it will happen on this fight. It's so spiky, the damage.
There is a bit of RNG in this fight where there is no way of preventing the orbs of not spawning, in goo. So when the orb spawns in a patch close by, you kind of almost have to stand in it, because if you send 2 for backwards, the beams are just gonna, go past it. So you almost have to run into the goo. And I mean, when you're one of the 3 healers, and you might not have your personals available because it's just a hectic fight, that almost is guaranteed death. Same with the DK. Like, the DK dies, and to some people, it might look like a stupid way of death. But the alternative is run around for 10 seconds and waste 10 seconds with the beams, which is not what you want to be doing either on the fight. You are possibly gonna die or kill the boss during the semi-enrage. And it is really, really rough.
It's a bit of a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of thing. That sort of situation where, unfortunately, the only thing you could argue is that the more mobile classes should have gone for the further ones, and the less mobile classes, such as DK, should be trying to take the corners near the orbs that are closer to melee, so they don't have to go as far. But sometimes, if it's on a healer, as an example, when you're 3 healing this fight, if someone asks you to move to go and do a mechanic, that's a big N. You're just going to tell them to start off.
Oh, wait, yes, you do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But unfortunately, when it's
the other part is like, they are only pool 5, right? Like, these are like communication points that sometimes happen like 20 pools in. Sorry.
That's all right. No,
I'm good again.
Okay, good.
That's communication that sometimes happens like 20 pulls in, quickly realizing with who you're linked. Might even be a weak card that tells you like, hey, you're linked, and be like, hey, dude, you're a hunter, you're more mobile. Please, you go to the back. I'm gonna take the front. And then you could possibly avoid this entire situation.
But of course, it's time to jump in for a 5th or potentially 6th time. I can't count. But we're going into this fight, and as you can see, everything's popped on the pool. This fight is a hidden damage check. It doesn't seem like a damagey sort of fight, but really you need to kill this boss so sharpish. So you can see that everyone's popping everything. Largely, there isn't a whole lot of mechanics coming in at this point of the fight as well. So it's a great time for everyone to stand still and nuke the boss.
I love how he sits there playing with one hand, just scratching his little chin on the pool for the first 20%. Like, this is nice.
What are we doing here? It's say again, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, right, sorry. So at this point they then have to be looking at seeing, like, you got these 3 debuffs coming in here. You can see they're trying to get them as close to one another as possible, ideally all within the MZ, because you're trying to help your healers out. Everyone gets stacked up. They still get chunked hard. You saw how hard they got chunked, but they still managed to do it. Get them all nice and tight, AoE it all down. This particular set isn't necessarily the quickest set. There's going to be a set coming up in 50 seconds from now that will get annihilated because it lines up with 2 minutes. It's so funny just seeing the hunters just go from, I'd say from the bottom. They're not. From like the middle of the DPS straight to the top. it's really insane. As you can see here, the only empowerment that we have right now is the tank debuff. Which means that when the tank receives a debuff, he will now be dealing a little bit of damage to the raid. So the tanks really want to be minimizing the amount of damage they take, so they minimize the amount of damage other people in the raid take, which is super important when you're only running 3 healers. So tanks need to be super efficient here, making sure they're facing these ads that are coming charging towards them.
And you saw already earlier, like, Maris just taking the sec of Narclis, just like you said, to lower the amount of damage they take, even though it's like, he's not in danger of dying. The guy was full 100% HP, but they just take the sec. They know they don't need it at the later point, and it's just going to reduce the damage that the raid takes. It is just, smart throat, and Brewmaster monks in general, pretty good for that. They are like the least spiky tanks. If you would take that debuff on like, a tank or a demon hunter rather, they're a lot more spiky. You could sort of get a pretty decent hit to the entire raid. But Brewmasters, the king of sustained damage taken, stagger beautiful for it, and it's a very steady thing that you could almost healing tide through, which is great.
No, 100%. It's very useful to have a monk, just so, especially when you're looking at raid damage for this particular encounter. It's not a bad choice by any means. You're now starting to see that she is now channeling into the sins and suffering, and you'll probably go and see that Roger's going to click right now. If you see at the top of your screen, he's probably going to click that 4th container to make sure it doesn't spill over. Now, this sins and suffering means that we will now have the dreaded beams between the orbs. So this means that when players are looking to remove these orbs, and you can see where they are now, they want to be going around the side of them. You do not want to be locked in the cage of death in between them. So here you go.
Yeah. And we saw a little bit of small miscommunication there. Like, you saw the hunter, they all went towards the same side. And this is, where the communication already improved. The hunter instantly realized, oh shit, I am the mobile one. Disengaged back. Night shifted instantly, did a small blink, and within 3 seconds, he was on the other side of walking around. And we saw earlier, in a pool where that didn't happen, that communication was not there, and a DK had to run through the beams to even get them done in time. So already improving their communication, and you see it again, Hunter going in, but had to pop the turtle, and the paladin quickly ran around with a horse.
So
they're getting better communication, which is important.
They certainly are. And if you're looking at boss health here, she's starting to go lower and lower. But at this point, the beams will now start to rotate. The bottles are still leaving goo on the ground. The tanks are going to be doing bursts of damage to people nearby when their debuffs expire. And those orbs are close. Those orbs are very close to melee right now. They should be very concerned. You can see that he's looking around, potentially looking to maybe move the raid away. But because those orbs were moved so quickly, it wasn't too much of an issue because they didn't get the opportunity to rotate into melee. So this is looking very, very good. You got a lot of ads onto the boss. That particular 3rd wave, though, they've really got to up their damage. They've really got to up their damage because otherwise the 3rd container is going to reach 100% and they will wipe. So, but otherwise it's looking clean. Everyone's alive.
Yeah, they're doing so good. This is going to be the rough part, though. This is where you have the 3 empowerments. The one of them is already at 91%. You really don't want to like resync all of these.
Orbs are so close.
They are super good. Have to deal with these super fast. Almost goes through melee. Never have to take a stack. We see some of the melee DPS as well. Just having to take, and I think one of them, Maris goes down as well. That's just the orb having to go through melee.
And now ads are starting to spawn in all locations because they're rooted. The orbs
this is where it goes crazy. Yeah,
that's a big shame. It really is.
You see it like one slow orb and it just goes bonkers. But I mean, Lady Dark, she's 15% HP, right? Like, she is going low. She is dropping. I mean, they're still pushing for their new best, which they're probably going to be able to get to 14%, but that was just, one set of orbs being slow, maybe some miscommunication prevented the same one, and you don't clear that one, that's where it get hectic. Because, I mean, flat out, people started dying because the orbs weren't cleared, right? We saw Maris, he had to basically run through the beam. And when you're 3 healing, with this much damage going on, that dot that's nasty. That just destroys you. And, I mean, we saw it, like, within, like, he went from completely stable, within 5 seconds, he went to, this is unhealable, you're dead.
No, you're entirely right. It was a very quick death, and I think I'm not sure what the right call was there. Like, you could either mess with positioning, maybe drag the boss back to where she spawns, because then you're away from the orbs, but then you'll be out of range of range DPS and potentially healers as well, because they're going to be, they could be mucking around doing the orbs or trying to heal those particular people. So by disrupting the movement, you might go out of range, which could lead to a death. And if you stay, you're going to be hit by an orb, which could lead to death. So it was unlucky, the position that he spawned, but something needs to be done there. Either a cooldown needs to be saved, so it could always be used reactionarily. So you just lob maybe a spirit link or something would be quite good for that particular mechanic, or people just need to get better at dodging.
I mean, it's probably both, right? Like, literally just because those orbs were slow, everything alternatives people had to start dodging. They can't DPS the ads. The tanks started to get better. The tanks they take a stack. It's literally just like the orbs is the most important mechanic. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you get 3 or 4 very immobile classes, or maybe even 2 healers in the same row, on the same line, that is almost preferably you would have, on the later ones, you just have a hunter be linked with a shaman, be linked with a mage, and those orbs are gone within 2 seconds. But in this case, they probably, have 2 DKs, which is, a risk of running 4 DKs. Is that they'll probably get linked at some point, and especially on those later ones, that's not the class you really want to be there.
No, you're totally right. You don't want to have a double DK out there unless the things happen to be near melee, but if it's near melee, then you're in a bit of a rough spot. We are back into a pool, though. It looks like guys have got the boss down to 77% health. I don't know if we've switched to that screen just yet. But yeah, they're plowing on through quickly. But as they do so, of course, this beginning part of the fight, generally speaking, it's just as it seems like there might be a small hiccup as we're not seeing just yet on stream. I'm sure it'll come up in a second.
I think we're just admiring your beautiful face.
Huh?
I think we're just admiring your beautiful face, Alex.
Oh, stop it.
Hopefully production can get back on the actual gameplay stream in a little bit, but
yeah, I'm not entirely sure.
I am kind of curious to see. Maybe this is why Limit ran. This is why they ran the double holy paladins, because at the later parts of the fight, if one of the healers gets to do the orbs, pop that bubble, pop that horse, just print through the beams. Who the hell cares? You can't damage anyway, and they just clear them faster. That way. That could be the reason why they went for the holy paladins.
Maybe so. I wonder if it actually matters. There we go. We can see the screen now. There again. I wonder if it was just something that they're more comfortable with. Maybe the healers just thought like they would feel more comfortable on those classes, and that's why they did it. It could very well be for damage reason, as you said, though, because paladins do a little bit of light damage via their healing. So that's something to keep in mind. So
and
it'd be interesting
to talk about Ryzen went disc. They realized we can use the extra damage. We wanna, get that extra damage out of the way as possible. And now he's playing discipline. You get that extra powered barrier, which actually is super useful. Pain suppression, arguably stronger than GS. If you never proc to GS when it's given to you, PS is always gonna do its part. So they might just be like, okay, now we want the damage absorption, we want extra DPS, and I mean, Ryzen is an incredibly good discipline priest, like absolutely disgusting. So
see that they're trying a new strategy here where they're moving the boss around.
Which is maybe they're just trying to see if they can get the a little bit differently from this, which I think is a really good thing to do, because they're having a little bit of a standoff over here.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah, that happens all the time. That's just, it's something that it's going to be a reoccurring thing.
Standing there like, you move. And I mean, I don't know if you know how Fragochi looks like, but that guy is a giant with a beard, and he has that really deep Finnish, the really deep Finnish voice. I would not mess with that guy. If I was Korea, I would also be moving.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So these, you can see they've still got the beams between the orbs. The beams aren't rotating just yet, but they will be soon. But the boss is getting quite low, but so are players. Fortunately, they did get a res out, so everyone is still alive, which is good. But the orbs will be rotating from here on out. These only leave goo right now. Ooh, we're going to get a soak. Good stuff. Yeah, here we go. You don't want to be in the middle of these orbs or get knocked back into them once your marker has been put on you. So there comes knockback. I think Narcles, very rightfully so, put on his bubble there because otherwise he would have died. It was also a good time you said they've got an AMZ down just in case it did clip melee. It looks like they're still chaining cooldowns, mainly
Yeah,
on
and
top of the concentrated as well.
they're really just being upfront with their cooldowns right now, but they actually seem to be moved. I guess they might want to be moving the boss a little bit after this to again just try to spawn those bubbles. Yeah, they actually decided to move a little bit backwards. We see Army of Deaths going down as well now. Oh, that's a far soak. Oh, the full shape. No.
Yeah, so that's one of the downsides of moving the boss away from that central location. The boss has a little bit of a habit of just being an horrible, horrible person and spawning those bottles with no relevance to her actual position in the room. She sometimes spawns them roughly around her. Sometimes she's just like, yeah, we'll spawn them super far away. So if you're not in that sort of centralized location within the room and you do happen to get unlucky with the bottle spawns and there's no one there to soak it, you're in a bit of a rough spot. I think in order to kind of fix that kind of thing, you might need to have the hunters stay a little bit further out. You've got to remember that they're all playing marksmen, so they have slightly higher range than their abilities. So maybe something along those lines. If they are looking to move the boss around, they're going to need to make sure that that particular situation is covered.
Definitely. Like, but I mean, they are getting. It's kind of interesting to see what they're trying to do. Maybe they're just trying to see, if they can get orb spawns away from all the puddles by moving the boss around more. Um, it is definitely something different that they're trying to do, and I mean, we'll see if it won't take many pulls to like get a feel. Like maybe they're just like, okay, things are just spawning too far away, or it's just too much movement for the melee. But it might also just be that they flat out, yeah. I mean, if you look at the top side, even if the orbs spawn in the exact same place, there's like 17 puddles less there, right? A lot of the soaking has happened at where the boss originally started, and the top side is a lot more clear. So it does look like the boss tries to drop the little flasks that you have to soak up in a specific point. Maybe they're just gonna only do like one big movement this time. It's something that they're probably considering as well. Just start the boss where she is, and then the top side is a lot more once the boss is like 25%, like do like the full 180, then tank the boss at the exit and just have that space completely clear for all the melee, and then the range just has to have to play this more occupied spot.
No, that's a very good point. It's a very reasonable way of doing it because I do remember seeing in the limit stream as well when they killed this boss, they did kind of end up dragging her around a little bit. She certainly didn't die in the position that she's in now. So I think moving the boss is certainly an aspect of the fight. It's just, of course, we've got to keep going back to the 4 basic mechanics that always need to be dealt with. And the bottles, of course, being what looks to be the simplest, but of course it does limit you in quite a few ways. Those orbs were moved very quickly. There might be a new record.
I didn't even see
Those yeah, exactly. Like the people were lined up and it just went, and it's all gone. Click in a blink of an eye. So good job on that. Those sort of efficient clears, of course, earlier on, it's just nice to have earlier on. Later on, that sort of stuff really does become the difference between potentially even killing the boss or not. Once again, it looks like they're only getting 2 ad spawns. I really assume they're just pre-AMSing all of this stuff, right? It has to be the reason that they're not getting these ad spawn.
I do think that's like the case. I guess it's something cool that you can do. Which I mean, it's super, super powerful. It's DPS that you need to deal less, and it is obviously less stress on the melee as well. It's like, preferably you wouldn't even have it happen on these waves. Preferably you would have it happen on the later ones. But I can also see that maybe for the later ones you don't have it because you're using AMS as an actual defensive. Right now, there's not much happening. They can use this greedy, right? Later on, if you get the orbs, you probably want to have your AMS available if you have to deal with those orbs.
From what we can tell as well, like in a way, you could argue, obviously, you would rather remove ads later on, but even the damage that you gain from not spawning one of the ads isn't actually too high because you still want to be AoEing anyway. So it's not like if you manage to AMS all of the ads, now we're talking. But assuming that you, of course, can't do that, just removing even one of the ads, of course, it helps because it means players don't have to focus as much as interrupts, as you said. But in terms of like extra damage on the boss, it'd probably be a little bit more minor than it'd say if none of them spawned. But of course, now we're starting to get fortunately, these orbs here do not have the beams between them. Look where the raid is positioned. if these had orbs on them, if they had beams connecting these orbs, that would have been nasty. That would have been
That
really,
would
really
have not
nasty.
been fun time in melee at all. That
No.
yeah, those melee would have just been captured and just praying like, please let me out. I don't want to be in here. I want my freedom back.
But they are not going to get any freedom anymore because she's now channeling into the sins. So that means that these orbs from here on out will be having beams amongst them. And you can see that the boss is getting dragged away for that very reason, is what I assume, at least getting to a more clearer area of the room, likely further away from the orb spawn locations that do not seem to be related to where the boss is. They always just happen to spawn around the middle of the room. So by moving the boss slightly further away, chances are you'll be a little bit more safe. These beams won't rotate, fortunately. But of course, you still got to be very careful. They've made themselves a. There we go. I was going to say they just need to clear that up a little bit. Fortunately, Roger, being that Night Fae, managed to soul shape over into that far corner. A very good idea, getting them through and out of the way nice and quickly.
Being Night Fae and being Fentir has really good advantage in this. Fentir also, you just one moment you're on one side and the other moment you've cleared your orb. So Door of Shadows and Soul Shape have been actually proven to be super useful. We also saw a little bit of the soul shaping obviously happening on Artificer. Utility choices from Covenants actually being incredibly impactful so far. And Narclis goes down.
Yeah, they're beams. I didn't even see them. I assume they didn't either. There was just one orb that happened to spawn right where Melee was. Cut them all to smithereens. Got completely garroted by that one. Oh, that is unfortunate.
Yeah, it's nasty.
It's the nature of the beast. It's the kind of fight that we're looking at. But you can see they're getting consistently far. I think it's relatively safe to say that the earlier parts of this fight, in terms of what you need to do mechanically speaking, like in terms of actually dealing with the abilities, is relatively chill. It just really goes from 0 to 60 in a matter of seconds. It really doesn't take long for this fight to really start kicking your ass.
You literally go from like 2 empowerments at like 50% to like 6 empowerments at 30%. Like the fight just becomes so much more hectic at the end. And at that point, it really just mostly comes down to player individual skill. Like you can have the tactic, you have your assignments, you can have the best raid leader in the world, but at that point, it's people that need to communicate between themselves. It is people that need to follow their assignments, and it's people that need to dodge those freaking beams. Because if you miss a soak or you get hit by a beam, either your raid wipes or you are dead.
And talking about the 21st player, real quick, with Scripe potentially calling some of this stuff out. As a raid leader, you generally move your camera how you want, so you're keeping an eye out for specific mechanics. When you're looking through someone else's eyes, he might not be able to call this as easily. This actually might be one of the encounters where raid leading exterior, like from the outside, as that 21st spot, first spot, might actually be a little bit more difficult than usual. He might need to rely on others, which is fine. You can just ask, okay, you are the orb person. Maybe Roger will go, Roger, make sure you just call out all the orbs because I'm struggling to see them, that kind of stuff. But
this has already been the case a little bit on Artificer. Normally, Scribe rate leads over Phil's point of view because it's a mage, he's familiar with it, and Phil is mechanically, as a team player, incredibly good. He goes for the soaks, he always does the extra jobs. But Phil was busy getting dragged into the middle by the Annihilation and taking out an egg and then placing the egg somewhere else. So Phil was, he couldn't see much. So he had to swap to, I think, Fragments' point of view, who had less assignments and he could actually see the fight and call things out more. So it's definitely something that, they're still trying to perfect from which point of view is watching. But I think at least on this fight, like, yeah, you're completely right. Like, I don't think it would be uncommon for Roger to call out how to actively deal with the orbs. I think that's something that could be incredibly normal. I mean, I even remember some bosses where Scribe didn't rate lead at all. Scribe was playing Surrender to Madness and he was just being quiet and popping his CDs and dealing with DPS, and Roger had to take over the entire rate leading. Shout out to Phil there for soaking that. Good job, Phil.
I was going to say, did you see how none of the melee moved out for that one behind it? It's like, we're hitting the boss. No one else can cover that.
There you go, boys. DPS time.
The CDs are up. You think I'm getting involved? Get out of here. But yeah. So we're starting to get to the point now where the tank will be splashing some of the damage that they take onto other players in the raid via the. You can see it just now on Genji. He's got that little heartbroken icon on him. That means he's receiving a share of the tank's damage.
Zelia getting the orb and the orb broken.
Ooh.
But
that orb's gone quick. Though. It did very well. So
You can
you can
definitely see overlap. If you get the heart broken and you have to clear an orb, and then right after that go soak, you better pop your personal because that's a lot of personal damage to take. Actually, seeing a melee go out of it, a melee just soak, beautiful. That's probably the first time we've seen it.
well, you saw the Mortal Coil available, so it was fine. What is it? Mortal Coil? It's not Mortal Coil for a DK. Is that the name of their ability? Death Coil. There we go. So yeah, they are plodding along, and you think look at this, it's just heroic, right? If this is the first time you've seen the fight, this is just heroic. There's a couple more ads or whatever. Oh no, just you wait. So you can see two of them are. Yeah, so two of them are starting to become empowered now. So now the bottles will be leaving goo on the ground when they're soaked. A lot to go and soak. I think Melee might need to help. No, yeah, I think we just saw a leap there. Good job by the warrior. Very good choice. And now the sin orbs are going to teams between them. And if you get hit by any of these, it's going to be nasty as hell. Let's see if their DKs are fortunate enough to avoid getting it. And if there is only one DK, hopefully they can one.
We can also see this is the point where they kind of start moving the boss around. They kind of figured this spot's bit cleaner. There's less room for melee. I mean, just look where the boss was standing, right around that Warlock gateway. There's like 6 bottles there. It's a lot cleaner here. Ads can be here easier, and it just means it's a lot easier time for the melee to dodge if it's so on there.
They got one ad. The beauty of pre-AM messing is that they got one ad. Assuming that's what this is happening. No, they didn't even get tank ad. That's actually huge, by the way. Reducing the amount, because that tank slaps. Like, it's not to be messed around with. Let's see if they can do.
Yeah, Roger knows how to deal with it. Oh, but one of the DKs, and they haven't got red enough.
Make sure they go and soak here. So now we're to the point where the bottles are going to begin to start bouncing twice. Aside from that, otherwise it's going to be chill. Actually, the ads are now going to root people when they're initially applied via debuff. So let's see how they handle this. Here comes the beams.
These should not be rotating just yet. Like, the energy is beautiful. It's 62. Oh, okay. It just pushed over to 66 and 64. But like in a couple of seconds, the fight just went from like 2 empowerments right now into 6. Right now you have that's rooting people. Right now, you can actually see people trying to Night Fae Blink, and they actually say Bloodlust. Bloodlust just popped.
Oh, they're doing it here instead. That's not a bad idea. So they got these 3 ads up at this point, and they're just going to absolutely annihilate it down. You can see that the wild spirits are going down, but they've got to be careful of these incoming orbs. These orbs will have beams that are rotating. Fortunately, they're far away from melee. They cannot avoid to miss up any of these kicks on these ads. Otherwise, they will instantly wipe. Make sure they keep these kicks going. One of these is going to hit melee now. Hopefully, they have a CD for this because these orbs are taking far too long to get cleared. It looks like they've just managed to do it. Everyone's still alive. Merit is going low, though.
Yeah. I mean, Bloodlust is still going. All the cities are still going. Everything kind of just ran out, but I mean, the boss is 25% HP. You need to make sure they get these nice little flask soaks done beautifully so far. The next set of orbs, though, they have been struggling with these orbs, and these orbs is what's going to make and break the thing. You can see Roger marking where they want the boss move to. There's a lot more space there. They're going to, right now, like I said, around 20% marker, going towards it. Ad spawn, a lot of them in melee, though. That's really, really good. Because, I mean, they're going to be right into melee, but the orbs are coming soon. They need to clear these fast. You don't want these to be rotating, screwing over soak positions, but also at the same time, soak and do the interrupts. Orbs are going out now, and they clear beautifully fast.
Very well done, but they are down a healer, but they managed to get him up. This is looking very good. They've only got 8% energy left on those sins, so they've got to be fast before that sins and suffering container, the third one on your list, before that one explodes. Because that's going to be rough. If that goes off, the raid is going to die very, very quickly. Looks like Maris is down as well at the moment. So we're single tanking this now.
Now
we've really got to get.
This is what now is made for. This is why he came back. Ryzen down as well. I think Soul down as well. He's taking a heavy beating. Bottles are landing. Need to make sure there's one soak in melee. They do soak it up though. Slowly but surely. Kush has the heartbroken debuff. Interrupt went through, and that will be.
It's close. It's really close. If they clean that up a little bit and get a little bit more damage out, they will get this fight. They're not too far off. And considering they've done this in roughly around 9 to 10 pulls or so, that's impressive. That really is impressive.
Definitely is, and it's also interesting to kind of talk like they changed their bloodlust pool for specific, you know, they changed their bloodlust timing for this, which is um, very impactful to actually talk about because is bloodlust there the correct choice? You might be able to deal with the ad wave faster because obviously everyone has their CDs there, but at the
Mm.
same time, it probably is overall DPS. That boss could have maybe been, if they managed to survive that wave, did they survive that wave solely because of bloodlust? Because if the bloodlust is on the pool, maybe instead of 7%, that'd been maybe at 2%. That's
It's
where you
true.
start getting into the like during that bloodlust and during those CDs, also going around, people were having to soak. A lot of things were, stopping people from optimally doing their DPS.
You
And
could
also, they didn't have potions. That fight was not long enough to get their potions back.
you could argue that lusting at that point as well also allows them to push to a new empowerment quicker. So meaning that they won't have to deal with a empowerment for maybe as long. So it will take longer for it to have the beam start rotating, as an example, or it will take longer for the potion to start bouncing twice, that kind of thing. So they might be doing it for that reason as well. But I think just having it at that point helps clean things up. Having that extra haste just allows the healers to get everyone back to where they need to be. It allows for those ads to be cleared quickly, which allows into another one, and they're lusting on the pool. No, they decided to change that.
I'm just like some of the DPS, right? Like, for example, you have one of the DKs doing 12k DPS during that bloodlust, and you have another DK do 7k DPS during that bloodlust on that pool. It's a 5k DPS difference for 30 seconds, just because one DK had to run with mechanics and the others, they could just stand still. It's also a little bit of an awkward timing because it is 4 minutes. I guess you can save the 3-minute window for that, but definitely easier for DPS this way.
Yeah, chances are that you won't get to be able to use your 3-minute CDs more than once in this fight. And so you'd use it on the pull even, and then you'll have one other time in which to use them. So in terms of those using 3 minutes cooldowns for that, it should have been all right to bloodlust at that point. But I think that's another thing to keep in mind, as you rightfully just put. There's so many more mechanics going during that window that if you're not getting as much output from that lust. So maybe they forgot to lust, and that was just like, screw it, lust now. I don't know. If you're a DPS, and there isn't a lust on the pool, then there's questions to be asked. So I think it was probably a deliberate choice just to see how it played out, and obviously aren't too happy with it, so they decided to change that.
Production is fully aware of audio issues, by the way. It is difficult. I mean, we are obviously just in an online matter, so sometimes issues just randomly occur. Production is aware, and they are trying to fix it as fast as can. 66% so far.
66 down. You can start to see that the potions are starting to leave goo on the ground. Probably not this, but the next set will probably start leaving goo. So the room's going to start getting a little bit more messy. And you'll start getting the beams rotating, not rotating, the beams between the orbs coming in soon as well.
See, I think 1 or 2 ad spawns in this specific wave. I mean, can you just imagine that one of the late waves, they all go on DKs and there's just everywhere and there's nothing spawns? Like, that's just.
It doesn't go down to that because it's to kill it, but that would be so gross. Just removing ads from the fight. Yeah, we don't want them. That's nutty. It really is.
Maybe Narclis is now holding the gold by being a paladin instead of a DK.
Well, they need a pala because we want.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm just joking. Insulting Narclis is like, if you've raided in this guild, it's like one of your favorite hobbies. He's just an easy target. But like whenever you insult him, you instantly have to go back to him and tell him that you apologize, even if you didn't hear it. It's part of it.
Well, unfortunately, he's at least being actually. It's even the freedom in the last phase as well. When the people are rooted, that freedom seems to be pretty useful, as well as the flat DR that he's given the entire group, which is very useful. But now you can see beam and 2 players just got knocked through those beams. Hopefully, they're getting the spot healing they desire, because otherwise they're going to be dead soon. Those orbs were dealt with quickly, but very dangerously. Reeves might actually be dead here. Revers even. He seems to be. Yep. No, they managed to heal it. Very good job by the healers to cover for the mistakes there. Only one ad seems spawning because of the cheesy nature of probably pre-AMSing is our guess, making it so that if it happens to choose DKs, the lol JK, it doesn't.
And
It'll be
it's such a good
interesting
thing
to
as
see,
well
actually.
that it is the tank ad that is happening. It is such a good thing
Yeah.
that the tank ad does not because that is the beefy boy. That one, this one you can like they're not even focusing it. Like they don't care about this ad being there. It's just getting passively cleaved down, and you just need like oh you interrupt or you interrupt or you interrupt. It is by far the best ad to immune. It takes away so much damage and you just gain so much. And I mean the boss is 35%. The room is clean, and they only have 2 empowerments right now. They actually have managed to get the 2 of the places higher energy, and then keep the first one more under control, which means you do not have deferred empowerment on that one.
Yes,
And
but now of course we got with rotating beams now as well. This is going to be a little bit spicy. You can see the one's at 90%, one's at 83. That 90% one, the third one down on your list, may need some attention later on. So keep a close eye on that. If that ever is 100%, then these boys are going wipe. There's no two ways about it, unless it's right at the end of the fight. You could go get those orbs. Oh, very well soaked by those bottles.
That wave also did not have any of the ads. It only had the tank ads. They managed to get 2 immunities on that one, and the bosses 20%. They just need to deal with these orbs ASAP. You see Narcles having to run out, try to get these orbs under control as fast as possible. Are they doing it?
This can start to rotate into melee. They need to hurry up with this. If it rotates into melee, yeah, very well done. It seems like everyone's still alive and they might be able to do this.
Need to keep a guide on the tanks as well as Curry and Roger. We'll have the heartbroken deal of now dropping a little bit low. Same with Maris. But I mean, Rise tough. They're just getting back into the melee range now. Boom still looks clean. 3 ads here, though. 3 ads.
3 ads in melee. So this is the thing they didn't want. They didn't want to have 3 ads at this point because it's right to win the fight. Everything is now fully empowered. Every single ability will be doing everything that it possibly can. This is the nutty part of the fight. They need to very quickly keeping these ads under control, watching out for the next set of orbs that will be coming in. And they can't have it in melee either. They need to be able to be ready to move from it. Fortunately, it spawned quite far away, but those will be rotating, and they need to keep going. Down. This is looking very, very strong.
And the percentage of boss goes down faster than the percentage goes up on the beams. As long as they can keep controlling this and keep its life, you might very well see the kill right here. No, the soak went through. But people are still alive. They're still alive. 3%.
So if they just keep pushing at this rate, they just got to keep going. They should very well.
You need to be ready for immunity. 1% left.
Here they go. They got
HP. I think this is it. Well done.
Oh, well done, Echo, getting late. They got it out.
And also beautifully done, beautifully executed. Again,
wow.
Full number 9 is the kill.
That was tight.
Rolling great right now. And this also means that we get the first few of Council of Blood.
Oh, yes, we are. That's a very good point. But of course, that was so unbelievably tight. Looked at it, most of those containers 1%. 1% away from exploding on top of the raid. That failed. I was so sure that they actually messed it up, but they didn't. They managed to keep going. They maintained composure. I'm sure some of them were pretty pissed, but still they managed to keep it together. And although it wasn't the cleanest, it was still a kill. Massive congrats to Echo for getting that one down. Very well played. Nice, swift progression. Let's hope that they do Council of Blood, which is going to be kind of seen in a majority, because there's a small amount of it shown on Limit Stream today, but not for very long. Of course, they did it whilst not streaming their point of views. I think they were practicing a strat and apparently accidentally something along those lines. Don't that. Sorry if that's an incorrect statement. Something around those lines, though. Yeah, we get to see exactly what's going to go on with the council.
And by the way, just in case people haven't noticed, they kill a boss. In Raid Warning, there is Shadow Play, which probably means that they're just trying their point of view for kill videos. A quick reminder to all the viewers to get their kill video point of views ready.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Min-max
it's
production.
That's always something that we do at the beginning of a fight. Just say record during a heroic wake when we're trying to gather footage for the videos. Oh yeah, yeah.
Is aware of the issue, by the way, guys. They are trying their absolute best to fix everything that is problems on with the audio. audio.
Mm.
Are doing our best to get it all under control, guys.
Yeah, with events like they're taking place online and everything, it can sometimes be spicy. But we're doing what the best we can during the whole, pandemic that's going on at the moment. So please do bear with us, and of course, do give us feedback in the chat. Things improve or get worse because less useful for production to hear. So, yeah, you can see the plot and straight there. They're not taking. I thought they'll take a break or something. Looks like they're ready to go. They want to get council down because they know that Limit is going to be pulling Sludgefest or in their splits, but they're going to be working on preparing for it, and they want to be in the same position. For this upcoming fight, of course, there is a choice to be made. So, what pieces do you think that are? What order do you think they're going to be doing this boss in?
Ooh, honestly, I am so unsure which order they're going to be doing.
Mm.
I honestly don't know. Like, there has been, I don't think there's even been a single little bit of footage of Limit has been trying to do on this specific boss.
Mm.
So, I mean, even I know from, testing, we have, you've tested every single order, and comps can just make such a big difference to what you end up wanting to choose as your final one. Like, on Norclis is like more worried about the loot than the thing that could happen on this boss.
Heavy trash. You do all the loot. It's fine.
Yeah, just press buttons in AoE rotation. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be very interesting. Like specific order they're going to be kicking in.
Yeah, I think because just for the people who are unaware of how this upcoming works on Mythic, so on Heroic and normal mode, you kill the bosses to remove the ones that you don't want, right? So you like say that you don't get the Dark Recital, you get rid of Stavros because I'm casting it, or you don't like Disrupt, so you get rid of Frida, who's doing the cast. Or if you don't like ads, you get rid of us. But on when you kill one of those bosses, they will have an afterge and it will recast that ability. So, as an example, when you kill Stavros, it doesn't matter. He's going to continue Dark Recital, which is his worst mechanic. If you kill Frida, it doesn't matter. She is still going to cast her volley that you interrupt, which, in my opinion, is her worst mechanic. And with Klaus, he'll keep spawning the ad that makes the bosses immune to it. So the bosses that like maintain their horrible, horrible mechanics even once they've killed. So at that point, you're not really necessarily killing the bot to remove their mechanics. It's more just to avoid some of their more awful empowerments once they get to phase. So do you want to have the slow? Do you want to have the thing that when you take damage, you will spawn goo under yourself to make it so that ads empower one another? The sort of thing that you're thinking about, rather necessarily let's remove abilities instead, which is kind of the case for Rogue.
I do think probably out of everything, the interrupt from Frida is the easiest to deal with just because they have baseline hunters and hunter in range is like what 40 yards, 50 yards or almost.
Mm.
It is to be high. So I think if you can have at least a nice target macro, spawns up, instantly insert with one of the hunters and do the rotation of 3 hunters if possible, something that you can deal with quite well.
Yeah, I think my guess, and this is a guess, I think you'll kill Frida first, Klaus, you'll kill Stavros, the run that we kind of recommended for Heroic. Largely because the worst thing about Stavros, Dark Recital, and you can't remove it by killing. So because of that, you might as well keep him up. His mechanics are a bit annoying, but it's not the end of the world, you know what I mean? So that would be my guess. The could potentially be that you maybe keep Niklaus up fast instead. So maybe you kill Stavros, Frida, then Niklaus or something. That seems to be another popular in terms of Heroic. But we'll have to see exactly how it plays out. It did not take Limit very long to kill this. Of course, we don't know too much about the progression or their kill order, but we have got we do know the time it took them, and it didn't take them much longer than an hour or so. So this boss shouldn't hopefully take Echo too much longer either. Limit has found something super specific and crazy, but we of course wouldn't allow that.
And it is hard to say because obviously it killed off stream, which is bad. It's actually kind of awesome. them being able to kill off stream. Because if you just want to do a quick pull, it's like we don't want you need funds of looking, which a completely fair reasoning. We're just gonna do a couple of tests. Probably within the first test pool, they most likely already almost killed the boss. Yeah, screw it, dude. Go an extra hour over off stream. I give a lot of respect for. I give them a lot of respect for actually being able to make this of being able to kill it just off stream. I think it's really
adds a lot of excitement as well, doesn't it? In a way.
Do you see a quick fight break by the boys? It wouldn't be Echo if it was a bit of a break here and there. So nice glasses of wine. Sit back, enjoy a quick little break. Oh, never mind. We are in the pool. Wait, what? I don't hear anyone.
Oh, there we go. Hello.
Hey.
Sorry about that. I have no idea what happened to my internet. It seems like technical problems are all the rage today. But they aren't going for a break. They're pulling the boss.
Yeah, I think we just scooped minutes into the future, and now we're pulling the boss.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I'm very confused. It looks like they've gone for the idea of kill off Frida first, though. I don't blame them. She's pretty annoying. Yeah. She did a lot of damage with her with her channeled cast. I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. So it doesn't surprise me that they're getting rid of her first. She's a bit spicy.
Yeah, I mean, and like it should be pretty easy in general to deal with as long as you have like classes like hunters. That has a lot of HP.
Oh, and here comes the first dark.
Oh man, there's still 3 here by the way, so I think they're probably gonna just try to go back to the
but 3 healing spicy, but they might have looked at the comp that Limit used and determined that they did 3 heal it. I don't know. This fight as a 3 heal, this fight does so much damage towards the end of phases when the oppressive atmosphere has got stacked up, right? So the longer you're in the phase before they go for a dance or before one of them dies, you just get this debuff that stacks up and up and up. And if you that does so much damage that you need to use healing cooldowns just to kind of survive it. That's on heroic. I can only imagine the pain and torment it will be like on mythic. So 3 healing the fight is definitely a spicy move. It could pay off because if you could do enough damage that damage doesn't even come in, then why have a healer for it?
Maybe the 5-minute break was more like Chief was finishing a dungeon. They didn't want to wait to 5 minutes, so just do a quick first pull, see what's happening. Well, now Chief is at the ready, and curious to see what they're gonna put in. I can see them take out maybe the Warlock and just go with the 4 DKs. I can see them take out the 4th DK and just play 3 DKs. I can see them take out both the DK and the Warlock and put in, keep the 3 Hunters and maybe add in the 3rd Boomkin again. It's going to be interesting to see like what their choices are going to be.
It seems like, especially if they're going to be killing Frida first, they're going to be dealing with a large amount of ads during the second phase. So having things like Boomkins and, of course, all the DKs is such a nice idea. Even the Hunters can use their bursting shot to knock these little bastards around the edge into the middle. So having that sort of control is really going to help out because those ads hurt a lot. One other thing that they did to this fight recently, in terms of increasing the damage numbers, is when you get Dark Recital, you get the beam between the 2 players, right? Yeah. And it basically says you need to be within 8 yards, otherwise you're going to take damage. They made it so if you're beyond 8 yards, it actually does a ton more damage, because beforehand you could kind of ignore it on heroic, at least, is what like the feeling was. It was more important that you didn't die to your little pools underneath you. But now it's just like, oh no, you still need to be with your partner. So it's going to be spice.
For sure. And now it looks like they've gone for the 4-minute break. Yay!
I see. Well, it's going to be exciting to see exactly how they're going to pull through on this boss. Because, of course, I forgot to even mention, you got that whole jumping mechanic, don't you? The dancing fever. I completely forgot about it. You got to jump up and down to clear stacks, otherwise you die. Yeah, I completely forgot. Oh, well, there we go.
I feel like for some people, I feel like for a lot of people, that mechanic is going to be cleared naturally, almost. Because I don't know about you, but like, I can jump, I jump. Like, I'm pretty sure spacebar is almost like the most pressed button for me, even during a boss fight. Every single time you get an instant cast proc or your arcane shot, jump.
Mhm. That's the BM way. That's the MM way. I think if anyone's ever played a hunter, they know the importance of jumping. It is a massive DPS increase.
Being able to pull off a 360 during your DPS rotation gives you 1% DPS increase, stacking up every single time you manage.
But yeah, for this, you've actually got to stop players. It's probably good that they're not playing BM because otherwise they may accidentally jump. So just to very briefly explain to people, like there'll be a bunch of debuffs applied to the raid. So you'll get a stack of 3 debuffs, I think it is. And in order to, you've got 30 seconds to remove those debuffs, otherwise you're one shot. So in order to get rid of the debuffs, you have to jump, but each time you jump, you do some raid damage. The idea is that you've got 30 seconds to remove your 3 stacks by jumping 3 times, but you got to do it in a controlled way, otherwise the raid dies. So if you just have everyone jumping all the time, like nutcases, like, you know, BM hunters tend to do, then yeah, you're going to wipe very, very quickly. So you just got to control your jumps. That's all.
For sure. I do like Roger's overlay.
Break time smiley face.
Yeah.
But so far, we've managed to see them clear 2 bosses today from within our little segment, at least. Oh no, 3, isn't it? Because they managed to get Artificer, managed to do Sun King, and they managed to do Dark Vein.
Yeah.
So
also, I mean, I think limits entire raid time from point 1 to Bay was about 11 hours, I think, being able to kill all the bosses. And right now, Echo has reached Council in 8 so far. I think actually maybe 7. So as long as they kill Council in an hour or hour and a half, in theory, they are pulling ahead in total time spent in the raid, which is good.
Totally.
But yeah, like, I mean, I think that Lady Dark Vein pull count and especially the Sun King pull count, I think was very, very impressive. Sun King was like
totally. It was very, very quick. Surprisingly so. Like I was very impressed to kind of see how quickly they worked through the problems. Of course, they encountered the problems that I'm sure all of us will encounter for anyone that is going to be Mythic raiding. But it's just the speed in which they can adapt to it, the tools in which they've prepared already to get through them, whether it be add-ons or just people's characters just ready to slip in. Bringing a paladin to Sun King is still the funniest thing I've seen in a while. 3 tanking that fight didn't even occur to me, but that's an ingenious idea. So yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff.
Definitely, like it definitely was a really good. Like, I don't know if this is something that, you know, they seem so confident in it. I feel like it's something that they definitely prepared. It's probably something they tested in Heroic. It's like, go prod, see how much healing you can do, and I think from that they made the tactic. Because I mean, in pool number 2, Noracle's already got the PI on pool. You know, like it's definitely something that they well prepared very well before, and it was. I think it was really good to see, and I think it was a real, you know, step up from, they kind of fell behind a little bit on Artificer. They kind of fell behind a little bit there, and then they pulled it straight back with 9 pulls on Lady Dark Vein Inferna and 10 pulls on Sun King, which Sun King has taken most guilds like close to 4 hours.
Yeah, then they managed to really get through it very, very quickly. So a very impressive job done by Echo so far. Super excited to see how they're going to do on this council fight. But I think at this time, I think it's time that me and you, Mr. Kana, are probably making way for our next host, because I think that's the end of our set right now. So you'll be joined shortly, boys and girls, by Barako Sharma and Missildine. Or Missildine, sorry if I'm really bad with names at the best of times. So they will be casting our next set happening in a few minutes, and to take us over into their particular casting set, we're going to be looking back at one of the kill videos with some VODs, with some voiceover over the top with the comms of the players. So thanks for having us. That was great. Thank you, Kana, for joining us, dude. That was awesome. And we will, we'll see each other tomorrow, where hopefully they'll be doing some crazy stuff.
Yeah, in between breaks, yeah. Be nice to... I think I will not get an electricity cut. Yeah, they're fucking full trolling me. They're about to tilt.
Dude, I was wondering, do you have like a generator?
No.
Yeah.
I'm in a different place again.
He's on the bike right now, dude.
Oh.
He's his wife
this portal doesn't matter, right?
No,
That's
it
fine.
does matter. It does matter.